بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My dear students, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the fourth voice lecture, and I hope that the fifth and the sixth will be in our class, inshallah. We are still explaining in chapter 3, that is related to credit facilities in commercial banks, for which we explained the main points regarding it as theoretical point in chapter 1, section 1, sorry. In section 2, we fulfilled the financial analysis needed to assure that the client asking for the credit is solvent. Also, we explained the lending of the bank through borrowing of the clients when borrowing loans from these banks, and the different kinds of loans. 3 kinds we explained. Then section 4, it was regarding letters of credit. We are now in the 5th section, that is documentary credits. And documentary credits in general is something like guarantee, or it is a guarantee method between two parties. One of them represent a client of the bank. There is no doubt that the availability of confidence between importers and suppliers or exporters is difficult in the frame of foreign trade, especially. The former, I mean the importer, needs to ensure the arrival of the imported things before payment, and the latter, I mean the supplier or the exporter, needs to ensure receiving the value of the exported things before delivering the exports, and this needs a mediator as a guarantor for guaranteeing this transaction, this operation, this activity. So we are in need of a mediator as a guarantor of the rights regarding both. Okay, it is necessary either to the exporter to get dues in respect of the export, or to the importer in obtaining what has imported according to the specified specifications, especially as the export and the import operations are carried out through electronic commerce, e-com. So, documentary credit represents a pledge or a commitment of a bank in the importer's country according to the importer's order for cash payment or accepting bills drawn on it or on the importer for the sake of the exporter according to the specific conditions mentioned in the documentary credit. Sorry. This definition in front of you is for documentary credit, which refers to the eligibility of the exporter to get the value of the goods shipped to the importer after the importer's bank became sure of the shipping document safety and the indication of the matching of shipped goods to the determined conditions and the specifications. If I will ask you this question in the exam, what is the definition of the documentary credit? You must not write these words as it is, because it is not a Quran. ليست Quran. So try to understand it well and write it by your own vocabulary. For the data that should be included in the documentary credit and the documents required to meet the documentary credit, please look page 211, 212. The parties of the documentary credit. Now you know that there is an importer and there is an exporter. There is the bank where the importer is a client, and there is a fourth party I didn't explain to you till now. So the importer, the one who asks to open the credit and contract it with the exporter. At the same time, this importer is a client of the bank that is guaranteeing him and the exporter at the same time. The importer's bank, which opens the credit and issues it. We call it issuing bank because he issued this credit. And at the same time, it is the guarantor of the payment regarding the value of the imports to the exporter. The exporter, the one contracted with the importer, and he is the one for whom the documentary credit is opened in his favor and known as the beneficiary. Now, there may be the exporter's bank that deals with the importer's bank. The exporter's bank which informs the credit. So we call it that he is fulfilling something in Arabic بيبلغ الاعتماد for the exporter. It is known as the advising bank and represents a correspondent of the importer's bank in the importer's country usually, and is considered a mediator between the exporter and the importer's bank. Now, it is worth mentioning that the exporter's bank may be enhanced as a confirming of the documentary credit. Look page 213, 218 to take an idea or a good idea about advantages of the documentary credit, that is letters of credit, letters of credit's risks regarding each of the importer, the issuing bank, the exporter, and the enhanced bank, that is the exporter's bank, types of documentary credits, procedures of opening and implementing a documentary credit, so the types of the credit and the procedures regarding opening and implementing this documentary credit, then accounting books and records used to open and fulfill letters. Now, to explain to you how to prepare the needed journal entries in case of documentary credit, you have to have your book now in your hand, because we will read the example together, then we will explain to you how to solve the examples. You have 5 examples. Now with the slide, with the slide in front of you, I'm dealing with accounting recording التسجيل المحاسبي for the transactions related to the documentary credits. As the documentary credit is to be opened by an importer, so we focus on the accounting procedures for the transactions of the opening of this credit until completing the mission for which it was opened, whether the bank client, the opener of the credit, covered the credit wholly or partly, in cash or through his current account, or depending on the basis of accounting the exporter's accepting the exporter's bill for the latter's favor, and here the correspondent bank may accept the bill and send it to the bank which issued the credit for acceptance. So this paragraph tells you that the importer as a client bank, this bank who is issuing the documentary credit, may open a letter or a documentary credit fully covered or partly covered or didn't cover it, but he is a bank client. He may cover in cash, either wholly or partly, or from his current account, or open an overdraft, even debit current account, or accepting the exporter's bill to pay it through the bank afterwards, after arriving the documents of the something purchased or imported. Note that through the third item, we will present the accounting recording for the transactions from the exporter's bank point of view to take into account how to record it. Look 5 examples, page 224, 231. Please open the book with me now to complete our lecture. Now, example 1, that is page 225, 227, to find the 5 steps with the 5 entries that should be recorded according to this example. In page 225, he said that the following transactions are available with regard to the documentary credits in one of the Egyptian banks during the month of October 2018, and we are required to record these transactions in the general journal record of the mentioned bank during the month. Number 1. One of the bank's clients submitted a request to the bank in order to open a documentary credit for importing meat from Brazil, and the value of the required credit amounted 5 million Egyptian pounds. There is no entry regarding this step. Just he fulfilled the procedures needed for opening the documentary credit, but nothing is done from the bank point of view unless except that he filled the documents needed for opening this documentary credit. Number 2, the bank agreed to open the required credit, provided that the cover will be at least 75% of the credit value. Number of the documentary credit is 101. Now we can fulfill the regulatory entry by the whole value, the 5 million, through the regulatory entry that is in front of you, customer's commitment for documentary credit account, bank commitment for documentary credit account. He is mentioning between 2 brackets imports to know that this documentary credit for importing goods or anything, for importing anything. Number 3, the client covered 80%. Remember that in number 2, we said that at least the client should cover 75%. Now the client is covering 80% of the credit. 80% of 5 million means 4 million value of the credit value out of his bank's current account. Again, the client covered 80% of the credit value. The credit value was 5 million. 80% means 4 million out of his bank's current account. He may pay this amount in cash, but he has enough money in his credit current account to pay the 4 million. And pledged to pay, تعهد إنه يدفع, the remaining of the value on demand. So when the bank asking him to pay the remaining, that is the 1 million, he has to pay this 1 million. Also, he has to pay a commission to open the documentary credit equals 0.5% of the credit value. The credit value is 5 million. So we will multiply by 0.5% of the credit value, in addition to other banking fees amounted 942 Egyptian pounds in cash. So he will pay the fees and the commission in cash. Now, client current account 4 million. I put it in the debit side to decrease his current account by the 4 million. Then we got as bank cash 25,942. Why 25,942? You will know now. Then we recorded the documentary credit covers that is number 101, 4 million. Then the other bank fees, 942. And the commission for documentary credit, that is 0.5% of the whole value of the credit. That is 5 million times 0.5% means 25,000. 25,000 plus 942 gives 25,942. That is we got in cash. He may pay it through his current account, so there is no cash account, and it will be 4,025,942 client current account. But he said that he paid it to the bank in cash, so the client current account will be decreased by 4 million, and cash of the bank will be increased by 25,942 to record in the credit. Documentary credit covers account that is covered partially, and its number is 101, 4 million. Then the commission and other bank fees, 25,942. Now, number 4, he said that the correspondent bank XYZ notified the importer's bank to repay the value of credit to the exporter based on the documentary credit terms, and that is commission and fees amounted to 1,681 pounds, and the shipping documents arrived to the bank, to the client's bank in Egypt, which has settled the documentary credit, the 4 million, and ordered the dues and recorded the dues to the foreign correspondents with the settlement of the client account in cash, the remaining 1 million, then notified the central bank that the import process has been completed. Now, the documentary credit covers, that is covered partially, number 101, was in the transaction number 3 in the previous slide, 4 million in the credit. Now we are closing it. And we got cash from the client 1 million. So 4 million and 1 million means 5 million. This 5 million should be paid for the foreign correspondence, that is XYZ Bank, but not the 5 million only, but there is 1,681 as commission and fees for the foreign correspondence should be debited as expense on the client bank. So the amount for the foreign correspondence equal 5,1,068,181. Now number 5, he told me that a notification arrived from the Central Bank of Egypt that it converted the correspondence dues for paying the documentary credit as well as the mentioned commission and fees. That's why we said foreign correspondence account XYZ Bank, this amount that was credited in transaction number 4. Then Central Bank of Egypt account in the credit 5,001,068. Then we have to cancel the regulatory entry. Pay attention that we have a notice here regarding commission of the XYZ Bank, that is the exporter bank, the 1,681. This 1,681 may be paid by the client himself. In this case, either we take it from his current account, so instead of saying commission and fees for foreign correspondence as an expense for the bank, we may write the credit current account of the client. Or he may pay it in cash to the bank. So the cash account will not be 1 million only, but 1,1,608. If he hasn't, if he didn't pay in cash and he hasn't current account, we may open an overdraft for him. So we will say debit current account of the client 1,681. By this, we fulfilled and explained how to solve example 1. To begin solving example 2 in page 227. Now, looking in page 227, example 2, he said that Suppose in the previous example that the client has covered 80% of the credit value out of his current account in the bank and requests to open a debit current account overdraft for a period of 6 months for the remaining value. So he will not pay the 1 million in cash, but he is asking for opening an overdraft of 1 million, and this will be for a fees of 158 Egyptian pounds charged to his debit current account with the million, with uploading the client by the commission and the fees of the foreign correspondence which has been paid in cash. So these fees plus the correspondence fees will be uploaded to the client. How to solve this example? First of all, for step number 1, step number 2, the entries of the transactions are just the same as in example 1. Okay, so no entry for the first transaction or for the first step. The second step, as we mentioned, we prepared the regulatory entry. But number 3, we debited the client credit current account by 4 million. Yes, he will not pay in cash and he hasn't current account now to pay from, and he wants to open a debit current account by the 1 million and the 158. So 1,158,000 debit current account overdraft regarding our client. Then we got from him cash 25,942. Why 942? 25,942 because the 25,000 represents the 0.5% of the 5 million as a full value of the credit times 0.055 million times 0.5% gives 25,000 plus 942 commission. This is the cash. Then documentary credit covers 5 million and commission of the documentary credit 25,000. Then we have other bank fees account 1,100. If you want to know from where we got 1,100, it is the 158 plus the 942. 158 plus 942. The total equal 1,400. Okay. Number 4, documentary credit cover 5 million. Credit debit current account for documentary credit 1681. Then foreign correspondence account that is 5,1,681. Regarding transaction number 5 and the regulatory entry, just the same as in example 1. Now finishing, we are about, because there is example number 3, 4 and 5 only. In example 3, page 228, he mentioned that suppose in the previous example that the shipping document which arrived notified the arrival of 60% only of the charge. The things imported, just what we received, or the notifications arrived of arriving 60% only of the required goods. Also, a notification arrived from the correspondent bank XYZ stated that the remaining of the shipment would arrive in early November 2015 and that it had settled the exporter the dues for the shipped part only, that is the 60%. 60% of 5 million means 3 million, and that is fees amounted 1,040 pounds. Here, number 1 as a step, number 2 and number 3, the entries are the same as in example 1. I mean the entries of number 2 and number 3, but 1 there is no entry as we mentioned in example 1 and example 2. Regarding number 4, documentary credit covers will be closed by 3 million only, and the client debit current account will be debited by the fees and commission 1,040 only. Then foreign correspondence account XYZ equal 3,001,040. Now, as the central bank notified, so foreign correspondence account, that's XYZ bank, 3,001,040 to central bank 3,001,040. And we have to cancel the regulatory entry by the fulfilled part of the documentary credit. So bank commitment documentary credit account to customers commitment for documentary credit, that is regarding imports, 3 million and 3 million. Now, with regard to example 4, it is in page 229. He mentioned that during the month of November, we have the following transactions of the National Bank of Egypt with regard to the export of an Egyptian exporter, and you are required to prepare the necessary journal entries in the bank's records. A notification has been arrived from the importer's bank of Bulgaria stated the opening of a documentary credit in respect to John worth 2.4 million Egyptian pounds. Here we have to say to record a regulatory entry in our bank, customers commitments of documentary credit account, exports, bank commitment of documentary credit account, exports, 2,400,000, 2,400,000. Number 2, on the arrival of the shipping documents from the exporter and assuring it's confirming to the credit terms, and it has been sent to the importer's Bulgarian bank with informing it that the commission of the exporter's credit and the bank fees amounted to a total of 15,400. So now, when sending the shipping documents to the correspondent bank with informing it by the commission and fees, the entry will be foreign correspondence account, Bank of Bulgaria, 2,415,400. Client current account as exporter, 2,400,000, and the export credit commission and bank fees 15,400, as he told me then. Number 3, he said that a notification arrived to the bank informing the Central Bank of Egypt has collected the value of the added it to the account. That's why we said Central Bank of Egypt in the debit party of the entry, 2,415,400. Foreign correspondence account, 2,415,400. And here the central bank is debited. Why? Because in our bank we say that we want 2,415,400 pounds from the central bank. That's why we debited the central bank, and we closed the foreign correspondence account, 2,415,400. Then we have to cancel the regulatory entry, that is bank commitment to customers commitment of documentary credit. Now remember that in example 1, 2 and 3 we were dealing with import transactions, but in number 4 and this example now, number 4, we are dealing with export transactions. That's why the central bank account in the previous 3 examples was on credit, but now we are exporting, so the central bank will collect money for us, so it is debited in our bank or in our exporter as a client bank. Number 5, if you open page 230, suppose in the previous example, that's example number 4, that all the data are just the same, except that the exporter requested the acceptance of a bill of exchange with the credit value in order to ensure his rights. So to be sure that his rights will come to him, will be taken from the importer, he asked the importer to sign a bill to be exchanged for the value needed. And you are required to prepare the journal entries supposing that the issuing bank was accepting the bill of the exchange, or the bill of exchange has been sent to the bank of the importer to accept it for banking fees of 1,118. In the first case, if the issuing bank accepted the bill, the same entries as presented in the previous example number 4, except the entry number 2. That should be replaced by the following 2 entries. When sending the shipping documents and accepting the bill, foreign correspondence account in the debit by the same value, but acceptable bills by the credit value of 2,400,000, then the export credit commission and bank fees 15,400. So I have a bill now instead of the current account. When collecting the value of the bill, acceptable bills by the credit value 2,400,000, client current account exporter. Suppose the other requirement, if sending the bill of exchange to the importer's bank to accept it, the same entries as presented in solving the previous example number 4, except that when sending the freight documents along with the bill to the importer's bank to accept it, we have to record the following regulatory entry: bills in exchange of exports credit account sent for acceptance, bills of exchange of exports credit account 2,400,000, 2,400,000. After accepting the bill of exchange and received by the bank, we have to cancel the previous regulatory entry with keeping all the entries as they are, except that the client current account, that is the exporter, decrease by the bank fees of 1,118 pounds, so it appears credited in the same entry. Please look in page 219, 223 for the following topics. Firstly, if the customer pay for the credit value fully or partly, either in cash or through a current account with the issuing bank, the case of documentary credit by familiarize, that is بنسميها بالعربي اللي هي مستندات دائنية بالاطلاع. Secondly, the case of documentary credit by acceptance, that is بالقبول. Thirdly, the accounting recording for transaction from the exporter's bank point of view, that is exporters or exports credits. Look also to a set of shortcuts that mentioned in bulletin number 522 issued by the International Chamber of Commerce, غرفة التجارية الدولية, indicating the international commercial terms in the year 2000, which includes 13 expressions to clarify the exporters and the importers' obligations with each term. That is page 231, 232. You hope good luck till meeting in the class or with another voice lecture. The remaining, I think, will not exceed 2 voice lectures or 2 class lectures. I hope that they will be class lectures. Thank you very much.